Hey everybody, welcome back. Up next, our 1976 Volkswagen Westfalia. Let's take a look. So like I said, 1976 Volkswagen Westfalia Camper. This is the first late bay I have ever owned. I've had one other bay window besides this that was a driver, and it was in 1968. So this was a departure from what I was used to for sure. But to be honest with you, the reason this bus came into the collection is my family was rapidly outgrowing the 1967 Westie that we had. Once those kids start getting bigger, that one bed in the back and that one child's cot up front just doesn't cut it anymore. So my wife and I tossed around the idea of maybe getting another bus. Like I needed one. Anyway, we knew that was my justification. The family can't fit in the camper. It's a struggle to sleep and be comfortable. Let's get something bigger. These late model buses have a whole nother bed upstairs if you get a pop top. So we kind of tossed around the idea. One day, I sent her this bus. It was on Marketplace. And I kind of knew she'd like it because it was bright yellow. You know, some of the other buses you see, more of the common colors that you see and everything. This one stood out and I knew she'd like that. So I sent it to her. I sent her the ad, and the ad told no lies. Someone had cut the front nose off this bus, the skin, and the entire fresh air box. If you've ever been into the internals of the nose of a bay window, all the fresh air is attached to the nose. And the front floor was also gone. All the wiring was pulled out and tucked back up under the bus. Someone had been working on it and they weren't anymore. The bus was available. So they were taking offers on the bus, and I started making offers on the bus after her and I agreed that this might be a good opportunity for us. Well, I am notoriously cheap when it comes to buying Volkswagens because I had the privilege of buying buses back when they were cheap. So I had in my mind a price I was going to be stuck at. And I made that offer. And the seller told me they'd already had an offer higher than that. And they told me what it was. But the person was wishy-washy, but they thought it was closer to the value that they'd offered. And so I told them I'd think about it. You know the old routine. You gotta play hard to get when you're negotiating. But anyway, I came back with a number slightly under what they wanted. And they said, I'm going to have to think about it. And I knew the game, so I was like, great, just let me know. And I contacted them a couple days later, and they said they had another person offering the price that they wanted. And I said, well, then I got to let it go. And I came home that night to let my wife know that we'd missed out on it. We're going to have to look for another one. And she let me know that she was actually the other person that made the full asking price offer and that we needed to go pick it up. So that was a surprise. The Volkswagen guy who had married a non-Volkswagen person, and now she was telling me we were needing to get a trailer and go get this bus picked up. Like I mentioned, we knew what we were getting into when we went to go look at the bus, and after making offers, went to go pick it up. It was down to having A-pillars, but all the skin was gone, and this internal fresh air box was gone also. Why was it gone? It was pretty obvious from what was left inside and some of the damaged parts that were still there that some sort of front end impact had happened with a spare tire on the nose of the bus. That's what had crushed the fresh air box. The original dash was even V'd in right here. You could tell it had shoved in. I honestly don't have any pictures of it looking like that. If I'm going to be honest, I think when I brought it home, I was concerned about the harassment I was going to get from my friends for me bringing home yet another project. I'm not really a body guy. I don't know paint and body. I know how to weld. I know how to weld thick steel. I don't do sheet metal. Didn't do sheet metal. I've started doing it. But it was a big project. And the idea of bringing it home when I already had buses sitting here that needed that much work, if not more, seemed kind of ridiculous. So I probably didn't take any pictures because of that. But anyway, it came to us we backed it on the trailer when we got it on there so that it wasn't catching all the wind and the bugs on the drive home. Yeah, but there was nothing here. They had done a pretty good job of taking it apart, but if you've ever gone to put something back together, you always wish you're the one that took it apart, because I had no idea what was really going to be involved in putting this bay window back together, because I didn't know anything about bay windows. You think, well, it's just a nose skin in this fresh air box, but if you didn't take it apart, it's like, what order does it go back? There was a lot of fitting and taking off and trying, even though it's not that many parts. But I also kind of get hung up, afraid I'm going to do something wrong, something I'm trying to get over. But yeah, all gone up here, but it's back in action. So speaking of the spare tire mount that did the initial damage on the nose, that's one of those things that my wife and I disagreed about. Being a bus guy, knowing how these tires were mounted to the nose, I was completely against putting a tire back on here, knowing the amount of work I was going to put into getting a nose back on it. She was completely on board and dedicated to the idea of having a tire on the front of it. She loved how it looked. So we went back and forth on it a little bit. You could see who won. Anyway, it's kind of growing on me. I like the look. And I also ended up using not the common spare tire nose mount kit that mounts to the sheet metal. And I feel like you're asking for trouble. This has the HD spare tire mount kit on the front that uses the bumper and an internal structure when it mounts there. It also lets you mount the tire facing out so you can put a hubcap on it. That's probably part of what's winning me over to liking the look of it on here. So something that needs to be addressed that I'm sure is going to come up at some point in these videos is a topic I feel like I'm a bit of an outsider on. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's more of a 50-50 split, but I feel like I'm in the minority on this. I do not name my Volkswagens. They do not have names. I just never have. I don't know. I guess I don't need to explain myself. Anyway, the exceptions to that rule have only been 2 of my Volkswagens, and oddly enough, it was both of my bay windows. My 68 had the name Scott Baio, and this bus here, well, it kind of named itself, to be honest with you. When we picked it up, there was a sticker in the back window for President Nixon, and so this bus that day, and ever since then, has been known as Nixon. So I think I mentioned already, we picked up this bus in 2019. My wife and I had 2 kids, and I thought this is perfect. We can sleep downstairs, they can sleep upstairs. Perfect fit. So we went and got this bus in early 2019, and wouldn't you know it, by early 2020, we had another baby. I started to worry we were going to outgrow it before we got to use it. All of a sudden, I felt a little under the gun to get this bus done so we could use it. But at the same time, the new baby in the house, stuff doesn't always get done as quick as you want it to. So the bus sat a bit, and I'd work on it when I could, which wasn't that much really. Again, like I mentioned, I was a little apprehensive about actually getting down to welding the nose back on in the fresh air box. I was worried that the dash was going to be at the wrong height and the windshield wasn't going to fit, and just so many worries. Like I said, I've never really been into doing body work before, so this was a whole new step. I'd attempted it once before, maybe a few times before. It's going to be addressed in some of these later videos because those bodywork projects are sitting around here. But progress was slow until I got a little motivation. Some of you might be familiar with the initiative of VW Run 21. I think that's when it started. It got me. I thought this is a great idea. We can all mutually motivate each other to work on our projects. We might not be in the same area. We might not be doing the same kind of work, but if we have those check-ins, man, it worked. I thought it was a great idea. Through VW Run 21, 22, and 23, that's when I worked on this bus. And It turned out. It turned out all right. I was pretty happy with it. My goal was actually to be able to take my family to a music festival we go to in Arkansas and be able to camp in this bus. And we did that. We succeeded. I succeeded at getting the bus done. We drove it there. We camped in it. We had a great weekend. And it filled me with pride knowing that I'd put this together to house my family. It was a really great thing. Interesting point though, when we were at that music festival, my wife was pregnant again. So we got the bus with 2 kids. The bus got worked on. There was a 3rd kid. And when we finally got to use the bus, the 4th was on the way, and he's here now. I have to go ahead and apologize to you. It's raining while I'm recording this, so getting the bus outside and popping the top is not an option right now, and the roof in my shop isn't quite tall enough to pop it in here. But let me show you a picture of it popped up. I specifically wanted a yellow pop top, which I think is correct, but I wanted black screens on it, not white screens. White screens is how it would have come initially, but I had a vision for this bus in my head, and it involved yellow and black. There's definitely other colors. We got a white roof, we got white bumpers, but yellow and black is kind of my theme on this thing. So I wanted that pop top, and that's what we went with. While we're talking about that though, let's look at the interior. So when we got the bus, most of its interior was still intact inside. It was only missing the front surround curtain, so that wasn't bad. The carpet was gone. I have acquired a correct original carpet that's going to go in once I have time to pull this interior out. But the rear bed's there, along with both upper mattresses, or I guess all 3. I don't remember, it's been a while. Anyway, it's all up there. We have all the curtains now. All the furniture's here. It's not a deluxe, so it doesn't have the stove, just a sink. And I ended up actually taking the tank out and the pump and everything so that I could have a little more storage in here, because I really don't use a sink when I'm camping. There's still some parts I have that need to be installed in this bus, like the seat stand mats that do the wraparound. Just hadn't happened yet. I did recover the front seats in the original style upholstery with the original green door panels, and I have kick panels to put in down here also, but they have yet to be installed. When we finally got to take the bus camping for the first time, Madison was 7 years old, and she slept right up there in the child's cot. How old are you going to be next time we go camping in the bus?
9.
9 years old. Are you still going to sleep up there in the child's cot?
Small.
It's too small?
Yeah, I don't like it.
Where are you going to sleep then?
Not with you, snore.
Oh, ratting me out on the line. So I mentioned when we went to pick up the bus that the motor that was in it, by the code, I figured it could very likely be the original motor, and it was still fuel injected. Everything was intact. I was super excited about that, but knew nothing about Volkswagen fuel injection. I'd heard the same thing a lot of people hear and people say, that when they run right, they run great. When something's wrong, they run awful. But I was excited to figure it out. Not only was this my first, really taking on doing some major body work to finish, to completion, but also this can be my first time messing with a fuel injected motor. But apprehension aside, I was ready to do it. All that wiring was tucked under the bus. Everything that went up to the fuse panel and the ignition and everything else slid up underneath that bus. So I got out a wiring diagram out of a Bentley, started piecing everything back together, and I remember the day I finally turned the key on and I heard the fuel pump fire up, and I was so excited. I messaged a buddy of mine who'd been helping me with some FI stuff, and I was like, man, I just turned the key on and the fuel pump started. And he responded, it's not supposed to do that. It turns out that actually that fuel pump is only supposed to kick on when the air flap opens up. Key on, it's not supposed to do it. It still works, but it's not supposed to. Well, I wanted it to be right, so a little more diving in, a little more details. We got everything wired up and working right, And then I remember the first night that this motor actually fired off. Scary story. I was excited at the time. I really wasn't scared, but I remember it fired off and going back to the engine compartment, and all those fuel lines were so dry from it sitting for so long. It looked like a sprinkler system of fuel going off in the engine compartment. I went and shut it off real quick. Like I said, I should have been more worried than I was. I went and grabbed my wife and I brought her out. I was so excited. I fired it up again. Acorn shot out the exhaust. That fuel was spraying. And as soon as she saw it, I turned it right back off because I didn't want a fire back there, that's for sure. We had already done enough work on it. Let's not have a fire. But it was really exciting to learn something new, the fuel injection, you know. I think it's a great system, but it probably does have its downfalls, and I didn't know anything about it. So when I was driving this bus, I was like, man, I feel like a 2-liter on this late model bus should be a lot faster than some of my other buses. And I started questioning if stuff was wrong with it. And it turns out maybe my expectations were too high. But also, that motor was not long for this world. So it's been 2 years since we camped in this bus, and that seems crazy. I did use the bus for a daily driver after we got back from that camp trip for quite a while. But I previously mentioned in the video that the motor was not living up to my expectations, and I was worried something was wrong with it. At some point, I lost a cylinder. I looked into everything I could think of, you know, whether I had an injector that was bad. I replaced all the seals and everything on it. We pulled it out. It was injecting like it was supposed to. I was getting spark. I had compression. We did a leak down, and it kind of was inconclusive. I still don't 100% know what it was. Even with the motor out and taken apart, there's nothing I could see wrong with the heads. I don't know. The motor was at some point rebuilt from the looks of things. I don't know. Fortunately, I have another, what seems like a low mileage, running 2-liter engine that I've gone ahead and stripped down to a short block. I'm going to reseal it up and put it in there. And hopefully we can put some miles on this bus. And while that's happening, I want to rebuild what I think is the original engine. So while that motor's out, there's a few other things I want to take care of. You might have noticed in the video that up on top of the pop top, I've got the original fuel tank and a replacement fuel tank. Another thing that was going on before I stopped driving the bus was I was going through a bunch of fuel filters and honestly a couple of electric fuel pumps, and those things aren't cheap. That tank was pretty rust filled, so with the motor out, I thought it's a prime time to go ahead and replace it. Along with that, there's some evap lines for the system that are behind that firewall that holds the tank in, so we're going to get those replaced. And I don't know, I've got some parts in a box back here. New CV boots, other things we want to do to make the bus a little bit nicer. So I mentioned boxes of parts in the back, and here's a couple of interest. Someone previous to me had made the famous hippie hole here to replace the sending unit on the fuel tank. And all they did was bend the metal back and put some, I don't know, sticky tape all over it. I ordered one of these kits for this billet aluminum where you make a removable cover that then bolts back in, and hopefully we can clean that up with it. Another thing I'm really excited about is I had Bill over at Sparks Works help me out with a new throttle body. Well, not new, one of the great rebuilt ones that he takes care of for you. This thing is amazing. I'm sure some of you are familiar with his work, and if you're not, check him out. The guy does some awesome stuff. Another thing that we have lined out, if I can find it in here, there it is. You know this awesome powder coat. Again, if you don't know him, check him out. The guy makes thermostats, and this is a brand new thermostat. I'm going to hook everything up on the motor the way it's supposed to be, and this is a key component of that. So some of the other things I've done to this bus, little upgrades and unique things I wanted to do, I ended up putting one of the later model padded steering wheels in it. Fortunately, this bus is late enough in '76 that it had the correct size column to fit the late model steering wheel. I believe if you have a really early '76, it still has the early shaft, which doesn't fit this. I don't know. Gray area. You know how Volkswagens are. Also, a cool little accessory is this is an original, an original hella fog light switch. It's in the dash even though I don't have fog lights on the front. Fog lights to come. Another interesting switch right over here. If you recognize it, you know. That's an Eberspacher timer switch right there. I have two, so fortunately I can make one, if I'm lucky, BA6, a period correct gasoline heater for this bay window. So that's another thing we're going to add in here later. Another cool accessory is this footrest right here for that passenger who their seat is a little bit higher when it's a swivel seat bus like this, and that takes a little strain off your knees. Another piece I sought out was this original radio delete plate for the dash. I don't really run radios in any of my Volkswagens. I was brought up in Volkswagens understanding that it's important to listen to your motor and how it's behaving going down the road. So I usually just sing to myself. Something else a keen observer might have noticed is I did replace the dash in this bus from the one being buckled from the front end collision. But this is out of a deluxe camper that had the dash tray. So right here, these two holes and these two holes held those little, I don't even know what to call them. They're brackets where you can attach the dash table that has a leg that drops down to the ground. I don't have the table, I don't have the leg, and I don't have those brackets. But since the holes are there, you know I'm going to be looking for one. A few other things that I've added to the bus or plan to add to the bus are like the awning you see up there. You see those on a lot of buses nowadays, but it's a nice addition. Quick setup, makes it really nice at camp. I do have an original big top tent for this bus and also another awning that clips on the rain gutter, but it doesn't self-store like this one. Inside, I've got a seat that, as I mentioned earlier, the family is kind of outgrowing the bus before we ever really got to use it. But this is out of a Vanagon. It's a collapsible jump seat. And it's just got covers on it right now. They aren't even fully on there. They were just a spare set I had. But if I can get that with all the attachment bars and everything I have to fit in place right there, that is one more seat that can be removed when we go to camp and put in a dry bag and store it on top till we need to be on the road again. One of my favorite accessories for buses that I didn't realize were kind of hard to find are the rain shields for the front window. Really like having those. Feel lucky to have found that set. Up on the roof, I mentioned it earlier, I've got a roo bar up there that I plan to install on the bus. So that about covers it on this bus. Still have a lot to do. A lot. That motor refresh needs to happen first. And what's equally as important, if not more important than motors, I need to go through the brakes on this. They worked when I got it on the road, but that is just a matter of time before they don't, I'm afraid. I've mentioned some other things here recently. This jump seat, that roo bar. I want to pull the interior out too because I have an original green carpet to go in here and I think it's going to make it look great. Really finish it off. I also want to put some roof bars up on that pop top. Traveling, I already said it, we're outgrowing this bus. We definitely don't have room for luggage in there. So a nice luggage box up on the roof and maybe some kayaks sometime, who knows. But roof bars are going on there. Yeah, I know I'm forgetting something. There's plenty to do. Let's all agree on that. So stay tuned. Like, subscribe. You'll see updates on this channel. Until next time.